So as far as preseason games go, that was about as entertaining of a preseason game as we can get. It was an absolute blast being live here on the San Francisco 49ers Report. I'm Chase Sr., and for our post-game show, I appreciate you for being here no matter where you are or how you're tuned in. Thank you so much for making our coverage a part of your night. On the docket for today's show, San Francisco 49ers, winners and losers for preseason game number 2 against the Denver Broncos. And there is so much to talk about. Let's first start with our Week 2 winners here in the preseason. And I want to begin with Brock Purdy because the Niners and Kyle Shanahan did elect to play their starters offensively for a drive to start this game. And I'm going to give Brock Purdy a win here to start off our post-game show because I thought Brock Purdy, with the reads that he had, with the plays that he was given, Brock Purdy played really well. Now, a couple of those passes were easy throws to Deebo Samuel underneath, right around the line of scrimmage. There was a big pop play to Deebo in the flat, then a quick pop screen out to Deebo on the exterior to that right side. There was a really good throw, though, as Brock Purdy rolled to his left on a play action, had to layer a ball in there to Jauan Jennings for a big gainer over a couple of defenders. That type of accuracy, the anticipation, fitting the ball into a tight window, that's what Purdy did to an impressive fashion last year, and he looked to be comfortable this year in this preseason opener, coming off that severe elbow surgery in which he hadn't played since the NFC Championship game, his first live game action. He passed the test, in my opinion, with the velocity, him just looking comfortable and navigating the offense. Led that drive, first drive of the game, which resulted in a Jake Moody field goal. More on him in just a few moments. Preseason Week 2 winner is going to be Deebo Samuel. So Brock Purdy hit him on his first pass play, ball in the flat to the left side. Deebo Samuel looked just as explosive, if not better, than he did back in 2021 when he was an All-Pro, when he was in that MVP conversation. When every time the Niners needed a splash play, they turned to Deebo as a wide receiver or a running back to make a big play happen. And he even said, going into 2023, I am not going to be in bad shape. I'm not going to put embarrassing plays on tape like I did last year. And I'm not going to have a season like I did in 2022. He vouched that he would be a better player. He came into camp in much better shape, looks to be much more explosive, quicker, faster. Still brought that physicality where on the 2 big plays that Deebo had, he lowered his shoulder and he brought the boom. And for Deebo as a weapon in this offense to look like the guy who earned that large contract going into last year, that's an important development for this Niners offense. T.Y. McGill, let's talk about him. Had a couple of really big plays in this football game, and defensive tackle depth is a little bit of an issue for San Francisco. They're somewhat thin at defensive tackle depth after Javon Hargrave and Eric Armstead. Javon Kinlaw continues to be up and down. I like some of the other players that are on this roster, but T.Y. McGill, a couple of really good plays, and you need defensive line depth throughout the course of a season because it keeps your starters fresh. For T.Y. McGill, quarterback hits, quarterback hurries, had a sack, a tackle for loss, and 2 quarterback pressures by the time the third quarter came around. I think he earned himself a roster spot tonight. Samuel Womack. San Francisco is experimenting with playing Ambry Thomas at outside corner, moving Diamador Lenoir to slot nickel because Isaiah Oliver, who San Francisco signed in free agency from the Atlanta Falcons, a player who I was really high on, has continued to really struggle. So with Ambry Thomas on the outside, Diamador Lenoir on the inside, Samuel Womack has had an opportunity here to be one of the top backups at outside corner. Trace and I reacted to this during our watch party. He made 2 really good plays on the football for 2 pass breakups, made a couple of really good tackles in the run game as well, showing really good instincts. And when he was in college, I said this, the moment that he was drafted, with all the pass breakups and interceptions that he had, he's a very instinctual player, and we saw that tonight. Last winner here, kind of, stay tuned, is going to be Sam Darnold. I think that Sam Darnold, even with Trey Lance really redeeming himself and having 2 really good drives to round out his performance after throwing a bad pick, we'll talk about him here in a moment, earned QB2 duties. I think if the 49ers coaching staff had to go with the quarterback if Brock Purdy were to get injured to win a football game, they might go with Sam Darnold at this point, just because he's the more experienced and he's the more seasoned player. And for the second consecutive week, he made a couple of tight window, big league throws that were impressive. Now, Trey Lance can make those throws, but again, we'll talk a lot about Trey Lance here in just a second. Another winner for me, who kind of is in that in-between area, because for the second consecutive week, Ronnie Bell dropped the ball, clanked it off his hands, which resulted in an interception. And we know that Kyle Shanahan, he remembers those types of things. And he will not give playing time, snaps, and reps to players who don't look ready to go, or players who do things which result in the other team gaining momentum, or in this case, it's like, Ronnie Bell, you're doing a lot of good against the Raiders, special teams-wise, on that end around, catching the football. Tonight, the same thing, special teams-wise, catching the football. You look at his numbers here. Receptions, targets, 7 catches on 9 targets, 114 yards, an average yards per catch of 16.3, a long of 43, which was a momentous play in this football game. When it comes down to picking up yards after the catch, making plays, making tough catches, Ronnie Bell is a 7th-round pick, looks to be a steal. And the Niners can't afford to let him go because another team will pick him up in an instant because he plays a really important position. But at the same time, when Kyle Shanahan sees you drop 2 passes, which result in interceptions, he's not going to give you regular season experience because of the fact that you should have made those plays and you did not. But he's a rookie. He showed a lot of ability and special teams impact. I think that Ronnie Bell is too good to pass up on for this 53-man roster, and Danny Gray went down with the shoulder injury after one play, which was a kick return tonight. Ronnie Bell might be the last receiver to make the 53. So with that, we're going to talk about Trey Lance here in a moment. Who is your biggest Niners winner from tonight's ball game? Very entertaining game. Is San Francisco able to take it 21-20 because of the efforts of Trey Lance? Your biggest winner, drop me a name down below. If you want to support the show, get yourselves a San Francisco shirt. You see the link down below, chatsports.com/SF. These shirts available in red as well as black. We'll put that link in the comment section and in the description of this video. Let's talk about Trey Lance here, Trace. Because Trey Lance, there's a lot to discuss with him. He's kind of in that in-between area because Trey Lance redeemed himself. And good for him, honestly, with how he redeemed himself. Because when Trey Lance came into the game, he made a couple of nice throws, made a couple of nice plays with his arm, with his legs, and then he threw a really bad interception. And at that point, you could see in Trey Lance's eyes, with his facial expression, with his body language, how deflated he was, how annoyed he was, how upset he was, and how sad he was that he threw that pick. It was honestly a sad moment. It's a young player who you saw just was suffering from a lack of confidence and him just being so unsure of himself. And you're like, is Trey Lance ever going to have an opportunity with this organization? Do the Niners even trust him? Have they given up on him at this point? Because they didn't play him until late in this ball game, which I thought was pretty telling. But Trey Lance, he threw a pick, right? Where it was a design pop pass, screen pass to the right, where you let the defensive lineman get upfield, and he throws it to the right side. He gets picked off by a 300-plus pound defensive lineman. And it was a play in which it was designed all the way to go to the running back. But he took the snap, he saw the rush come, and just threw it. You got to at least look at the back to see if he's open. He was not. Ball batted up by a defensive lineman. It was picked off. It was a bad pick where, honestly, I felt bad for Lance in that moment because he just looked so sad. And I'm like, this guy is 22 years old, drafted number 3, earned the opportunity last year to be this team starter, suffered that season-ending injury, and now he's buried on the depth chart, presumably, right? And you can just see that he's suffering from a lack of confidence. But after that, Trey Lance redeemed himself. And as the quarterback in this league, you have to have that short mindset. You have to have that short memory. Trey Lance had that, and he made some really nice throws. He led a touchdown scoring drive in which he went 6 of 8, drove San Francisco down the field, 85 yards, and he went through his progressions on that touchdown throw, 22 yards to Latu, who needed that just as much as Trey Lance did, where he looked to the left, went through his reads, threw it down the right seam. It was a wobbler, but it was a touchdown. Latu caught it. He suffered from a lot of drops throughout the preseason. He might not even make this roster as a third-round pick, but Lance needed that, and it was a good drive. And then, with an opportunity, down by 2, to win this ball game, Trey Lance made some really, really nice plays. Couple of good throws throughout the night to Tay Martin, couple of really good throws to Ronnie Bell, and Trey Lance drove the Niners down the field in a 2-minute drill type of situation in which San Francisco was able to give the ball to Jake Moody for him to hit the game-winning field goal. And Trey Lance continues to get better and better and better with more reps, with more experience. And what a thought that is, that Trey Lance, an inexperienced player who's barely played any football at North Dakota State and at the NFL, gets more acclimated and a better feel for the game the more that he plays. I think that Trey Lance can be a good quarterback in this league. I just don't know if it's going to be with the San Francisco 49ers because what spot do they have for him? They clearly have kind of given up on the kid, and it's sad in a way, but Lance has ability, and we see that time and time again with the throws and the plays and the escapability that he has to his resume. He does like living in between the numbers around that hash mark, but Trey Lance, I think, eventually could play in this league. He's just so inexperienced and immature right now. So what do you do with Lance? Trade, cut, keep? Let us know right now down in the comment section. Our preseason week 2 losers here. Danny Gray. Danny Gray didn't play last week against the Raiders because of an injury, and he's on the roster bubble right now as another former third-round pick who has speed to his game, 4.3 40-yard dash guy, has made some plays, but also suffered from a lot of drops this training camp, last training camp. He's back there replacing Ray McLeod as the first-team kick returner. Had a pretty good return in which he looked good. Injured his shoulder, out for the rest of the game. And because he can't show plays on tape, I wonder, because of the emergence of Ronnie Bell, if Danny Gray is going to make this football team. He didn't do anything really outside of drops throughout training camp to lose himself a roster spot outside of getting injured. Sometimes it's not fair, but football and life is not fair. Isaiah Oliver, loser number 2, because Isaiah Oliver, I continue to say all throughout the offseason, I think this guy can be a very underrated signing for San Francisco. You know, the Atlanta Falcons used a high draft pick on him. He showed some good moments. Niners drafted him to pretty much replace Jimmy Ward, but he played deep into that preseason game against the Raiders last week. And then the coaching staff comes out and says, yeah, he has not earned the starting nickel slot role. So he has to earn that role. And Isaiah Oliver, on a third down, had an opportunity to tackle a tight end prior to the first down marker, totally whiffed. And in coverage, made a couple of misfires and had a couple of misfires, I should say. So now, with San Francisco experimenting with Deommodore Lenoir at slot inside nickel corner, I think Isaiah Oliver is not a guarantee to start there, of course. Is he a guarantee to make this roster? He might not be. We'll see. Jon Feliciano, big loser. Jon Feliciano's been in the league for a really long time. He whiffed on a couple of blocks that led to quarterback pressures, quarterback sacks. Did think he was great in the run game. And then he got also whistled for a couple of penalties. You have to be better if you're a veteran who's played in this league for a really long time. And Jon Feliciano just was not good at that right guard spot. He continued to get beat and gave up a bunch of quarterback pressures, quarterback sacks, and committed a lot of penalties. And then lastly, Jake Moody, for me, continues to be a loser. He had the game-winning kick. But go back and watch that kick. I tweeted it out at Chase_Senior on my Twitter page. Barely snuck it in the right upright. he missed a PAT earlier in the game. He was good on his field goal attempts outside of that. But this is really what it comes down to. And I've said this time and time again. Do not draft kickers for a couple of reasons. Every other position on a football roster is more important than a damn kicker. Our kicker is important, for sure. Robbie Gould being perfect in the postseason, hitting a bunch of clutch kicks throughout his Niners tenure. Very important, no doubt. But you don't draft a kicker because you can find good kickers as UDFAs, as free agents. And when you draft a kicker in the third round, kicking is like golf. Kicking is like baseball. Kicking is like tennis. If you lose it mentally, you are cooked. If you lose it mentally, everything goes awry. If you have a mental downfall, everything seems so hard. And when you're drafted in the third round as a kicker, we're seeing it right now with Cade York with the Browns as a fourth-round pick last year. You lose that confidence and you feel the pressure of having to live up to the expectations of being that third-round pick. And every time you line up to kick that damn football, you're thinking, I'm a third-round pick. I have to make this, when it has to be more free-flowing, when it has to just be easier mentally. Jake Moody is feeling the pressure right now. And the Niners are a Super Bowl contending team who cannot afford to lose games because of a rookie kicker. He is on the hot seat. His roster spot is not guaranteed. And Zane Gonzalez is a seasoned vet in this league who's kicked in a lot of big games. If Jake Moody continues to fail, look out for Zane. Look out for a call to Robbie Gould. With that, your biggest loser from tonight's game is who? I want you to drop me a name down below. Make sure you subscribe to the show for year-round and daily coverage of the San Francisco 49ers. Thanks to everybody who tuned into our watch party. Y'all are the best, and we'll continue to do what we do and set the standard right here on YouTube.